Hey folks, in this video we are going to be learning how to automate a Slack message using Google Forms, Google Sheets, and Google Apps Script. This is a level 3 video which we'll be building directly on top of my level 2 video, which showed us how to create two functions to collect data from Google Drive or Google Sheets, uh, then build an app using Block Kit Builder so that then we could send a message to Slack. So we're going to be adding an automation layer to that by using a Google form to capture our data, which will then populate a Google Sheet, and then will be automatically sent to Slack using AppScript. We're going to be moving at a quicker pace in this one because a lot of this is going to be similar to my level 2 video, but I'm going to be creating this for people in the event that this is the only video that they've seen. So if you are coming from level 2, you can probably skip ahead to see how to integrate a form and then how to automate the Slack message. Otherwise, I hope you sit back and find this helpful. Cool. So in order to do this tutorial, you're going to need to have a Slack workspace where you have administrative privileges so that you can generate an API key and tokens and all that type of stuff. So you can sign up for a free account, just go to Slack, create your own workspace, and then you can start developing. We're going to be using Block Kit Builder. This is a super cool tool that will allow you to write JSON code over here in line with the markup language that Slack uses to create messages. Super user friendly, like beginner level can use this type of stuff. It's great. So we'll be getting to that in the third segment of the video. But we're going to begin by going to Google Drive. So we are going to be using a Google form. So we're going to go up to the upper left-hand corner, select New, go to Forms, and we're going to build out our form. So this form is going to have a similar taxonomy as the sheet in my previous video. So that sheet had 3 data points, name, location, and amount. So we're going to title our form with something generic. So it's just going to be called like data form, a place to capture data. Super creative, I know. Untitled question number 1 is, what is your name? And we're going to have this as a short answer. And then we're going to add another question, which will be another short answer, which will be, what is your location? And then we are going to have a final answer, which is, I guess, just another short answer. Real basic on this on this form here. How much is your asking price? So I don't think there's any way to make this text, like to differentiate between text or like the data type. Let me see. Maybe there is, reach out in the comments if there's like some type of thing that I'm overseeing here. Ultimately, this is just to give you a sense of how to set up this form. Cool. So now that we have that, we're going to go over to responses, and we are going to link to sheets. So you can either create a new spreadsheet or you can select an existing spreadsheet. So we will call this automated Slack message. You can call it whatever you want to. And then we're going to create our Google Sheet. Cool. So this will be just a little bit different from the other sheet because we're going to have a different column order, but that'll be fine. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit because I don't need these extra columns over here. So that's just like my preference on how to do things. I'm also going to bold the first row, and I'm just going to clean these up a little bit just because that's the way that I do things. Okay, cool. So we have our form over here. I'm going to do real quick, and okay, cool, that updated the name. And if you go back to our folder and we hit refresh, we should see a form and a sheet in the same directory or drive folder. Cool. So now that we have that out of the way, we are going to go up to, actually, you know what we can do real quick? So because we want this to be a dollar amount, we can change the formatting here. That way anything that enters the sheet will come in as a number value, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you can do whatever you want to here. It's basically, we just want 3 data points to populate a list in our Slack message. Cool. We're going to go up to the extensions menu, and then we're going to go to AppScript. We are going to change the name of our project to be called Slack message. So once we have an opportunity to do that, we'll double click on Untitled Project and change it to Slack message. This project is going to have 3 files. The first, sorry, I don't know why that happened. So this is going to have 3 files. The first file will be our code file. This will be our executable. That means this is where we are going to compile our functions in order to deliver our automated Slack message. We're then going to create a script file. So we're going to select this plus icon up here and select script. And we're going to call this function1 data collector. So this function is going to allow us to extract data from a Google Sheet. That way we can just call the function and we don't have to worry about parsing all the data. So let's start with that. So we'll do a function and we'll call it data collector. And this is going to have 1 argument, which will be the sheet ID. So if you remove the boilerplate code, you're going to begin by typing out the word function, and then you're going to give it a name, and then you're going to have empty parentheses where you will enter in your input variable. So I'm calling the sheet ID because that is the value that I want to enter here. You're going to hit a space after the parentheses, and then you're going to select a curly bracket, and then it will auto-complete a closing curly bracket. You're going to hit enter twice, and you're going to hit 2 slashes so that you can add a comment, and you're going to type the words access the workbook. We're going to declare a variable of WB, which will be short for workbook. It doesn't matter what you call this. I call it this just so that it's easy to read and understand what my variable is doing. You're going to use an equal sign in order to set it to capital S spreadsheet app .get active spreadsheet. This is case sensitive and it does come up as an autocomplete. You're also going to have to add empty parentheses to it. So get active spreadsheet allows you to access the spreadsheet that is bounded to your Google Apps Script project. So because we went to the extensions menu of a Google Sheets workbook, we had a bounded app script. So we could use the get active spreadsheet method. If we were using an unbounded app script, like we did in the level 1 Slack message video, we would not be able to use get active spreadsheet because there is no spreadsheet that is connected to the app script. In that case, you could leverage things like open by ID or open by URL. I use those in some of my other videos. If you have questions about that, leave them in the comments section. Cool. So we're going to hit enter twice. We're going to hit the left arrow twice. And then we're going to add 2 slashes for another comment where we're going to say access all the sheets. We're going to declare a variable of sheets, plural, and we are going to set that to WB, the variable that we just created, dot get capital S sheets. You'll see that comes up in the autocomplete. Hit enter and then have an open parentheses. The reason that we're doing this is because we want to leverage the ID of the sheet with our data in order to extract values from that sheet. Google Apps Script has a native method called getSheetByName that allows you to access each sheet in the workbook. As I've stated in my previous videos, and I apologize if you've heard this a million times, GetSheetByName is vulnerable to error in the event that your spreadsheet is given out to a user base. If you or anyone else changes the name of your sheet, then your script will break. These functions, such as getSheetByID and data collector, two custom functions that I use on a lot of my videos, are leveraged to circumvent the getSheetByName parameters by programmatically extracting the sheet name by using the sheet ID. In order to accomplish that, we need to access every sheet in the workbook so that we can evaluate each ID of the sheets in the workbook. So we are collecting all of the sheets in the sheets variable so that we can move on to the next step where we use a for loop to iterate through each sheet in the workbook. We're going to resume coding now. We're going to hit enter twice. We're going to hit the left arrow on a keyboard twice. We're going to enter 2 slashes and a space, and we're going to leave a comment of loop through the sheets. We're going to hit enter, hit tab for our alignment, and we're going to begin our for loop. We're going to type the word for and then open parentheses. We're going to use a lowercase I as our variable. You can enter anything you want for your variable. The reason that I use the character I is because it is short for iterator. We are iterating through all of the values in our for loop. Therefore, I am using an I as my variable to do so. We are going to resume coding now by typing in the word in space sheets. So we're accessing or we're referencing that sheets variable that we created on line 7. We're going to hit the right arrow once, twice, and then we are going to open a curly bracket. We'll have a closing bracket autocomplete for us, and then we're going to hit enter. 2 more slashes for another comment, and now we're going to use a conditional to evaluate the sheet IDs. We're going to hit enter and tab. So we're going to use an if with an open parentheses, and we're going to call the sheets variable with square brackets and an I. We're going to say sheets iterator dot get sheet ID with open parentheses. We're going to hit space. We're going to do 2 equal signs, and then we're going to type in our function's input, which in my input is sheet underscore ID. Now, the reason that we're using 2 equal signs here is because we want to evaluate the sheet's ID against the input variable, also called sheet underscore ID. When we are using variables, you can see that we are declaring them or defining them by using a single equal sign. So when we use 2 equal signs, we are differentiating the use of that symbol in order to evaluate a value rather than to define it. So if we just had 1 equal sign here and we said if sheets iterator.getSheetID equal sign sheet ID, we would then be declaring this value as this value. But because we have 2 equal signs, we are comparing the 2 values. Click to the right of your closing parentheses of the if statement, hit space, and use another open curly bracket. Hit enter. 2 slashes for another comment where we will collect the sheet name. So once we identify the sheet that has the ID that matches our input variable, we can use it to get the name of that sheet. So we're going to declare a variable of sheet name, and we're going to set it equal to sheets square bracket I, go to the right of your brackets, dot get sheet name. Open parentheses, go to the right. I like to put a semicolon. You don't have to put the semicolons, but that's just how I learned, so I just keep doing it. So now we're done our if statement and our for loop. We're going to hit the down arrow once, down arrow twice, hit enter once, enter twice, hit the left arrow once, twice, and then do 2 backslashes or 2 slashes, I never know the difference, for another comment. So now we're going to access the sheet with our data. We're going to hit enter and then tab, and we're going to declare a variable of data sheet, and we're going to set it equal to workbook.getSheet by name, and then we're going to pass in that sheet name variable that we declared on line 14. So this is what I was talking about. This is how we access sheets using Google Apps Script. I'm not aware, I should say, of another way to do this, short of iterating through all the sheets. Perhaps there is a more efficient way of doing it, but this is how I've done it to this point. So basically you have to use get sheet by name in order to access the sheet. This is one way to find out what the name is by using the sheet ID. We're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, new comment, and we are going to say extract our data. So we're going to be using a return statement here because this is what we want the output to be from our data collector function. So our input will be a sheet ID, and then this code will process and we will return an output that will be an array of values. And those values will be the last row of data from our from our Google Sheet that is collecting values from a data form. So what we're going to do is reference datasheet dot get range, and then we're going to use open parentheses. Get range has 4 optional values. The first value is the starting row. The second value is the starting column. The third value is the number of rows that you want to include. And the fourth optional argument is the number of columns you want to go. So we want to start at datasheet.getLastRow. And then we're going to have open parentheses, and we're going to do a comma and hit space. I am now going to take a moment to explain why we're doing data get last row. So we are going to want to have the most recent response to our form populate our Slack message. So what's going to happen is someone is going to go to our form, they're going to answer our questions, and those answers will then get pushed into our Google Sheet. Once they hit the Google Sheet, we want the trigger in our app script to collect those values and populate our Slack message. So in order to do that, we need to dynamically account for each new row of data that comes in every time somebody enters a response to our form. So we want the last row to a message. Then we get another response, and we want this last row to go to a message. And then we get another response. We want this last row to go to our message. Therefore, our starting row needs to be dynamic. And we can dynamically access the last row of data using the getLastRow method. In the event that you wanted literally the very last row in your sheet, regardless of whether or not there are any values in there, then you could use getMaxRow. We don't need to do that, so we won't do that. We're going to resume coding now, and we are going to be resuming at the second option or second argument of our getRange method, which is the starting column. So we're going to enter in a value of 2. Now, the reason that we're entering in 2 is because we have this timestamp column over here. And I personally don't want that in my Slack message. If you do, then you can include the number 1. Another option that you could have in here is including the email of the person responding to your form. I forget where to put it in here. I think you could do it in responses or settings or something like that, where you can say like, include, so like you can see here, you can collect email addresses. So you could change it to verified or responder input or whatever. So if you do that, then those will also appear as columns in your data. For my purposes, I want to begin with this column, column B, with what is your name. So I'm starting at column 2. But if you do want the timestamp or the respondent's email or any of that type of stuff, and those appear in the first 2 columns or the first column or whatever, then you can enter in a value of 1 if you want to start here. Additionally, if you wanted to start at like the 3rd column and you just wanted these 2 columns over here, you could start at 3. It's a dynamic thing that as you get more comfortable, you can adjust what you want to do. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to focus on just columns B, C, and D. So we're going to begin at column 2, also known as column B. So now we're going to go to the 3rd argument, which you can see here is the number of rows to go. We only want 1 row of data, right? So we want the last row and 1 row of data to populate. Finally, we're going to enter in the number of columns. So we're going to go 3 columns. Now, the reason that I did that is because like we could use get last column, but if we do that, then we would have to, basically we would return 4 instead of 3 because get last column and get last row are relative values. So we're just going to enter in 3, and we might have to adjust this. I apologize if we do. I'm doing this off the cuff. But I think if we say 3, it will be relative to get last row. Cool. So our function is done. So what we're going to do now is hit save. And I just want to point out real quick, once you hit save, you'll notice that the function to run changed from my function to data collector. If you try to, I got a comment about this recently. If you tried to run this, first of all, we're going to have to review permissions. So I'm not going to do that. But if you tried to run this in here, then you'll get an error that says like row 22 is giving you an error. The reason is because you can't run this because the input is saying sheet ID and you can't use sheet ID to get a sheet name. So you're evaluating literally the word sheet ID here. And then you're going down here and you're like, okay, let me access that sheet by name and let me get some data from there. And like, there is no sheet ID that is literally the word sheet underscore ID. So if you run it in here to test your code, it's not going to work. So let's transition over to the code file. And actually, we can use this to set up our executable. So on line 2, you'll hit enter and you'll do 2 slashes and you will say collect data from Google Sheets. And we're going to hit enter. And let's declare it a variable of form responses. And we're going to set that equal to that data collector function that we just created. And we're going to use parentheses. And now you can see that we have 1 input, which is the sheet ID. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to get the ID of our sheet. So you can find the ID at the end of the URL of your Google Sheet. So you can see up here it says GID is equal to. It's your sheet ID is the values that come after that equal sign. So we're going to copy that result and we're going to pass it into our data collector. I'm going to hit enter twice. Hit it twice. What the hell? Let's do capital L and we're going to do logger.log and then we're going to pass in form responses. We're going to hit save and then we're going to run our function. So we're going to be asked to review our permissions. And we're going to select our account. We're going to go to advanced. We're going to go to Slack messages. I know it says unsafe. It's only unsafe because Google hasn't verified this code, but I assure you it's not unsafe. It's just letting you know that if you allow access, it can read and write to your Google Sheets. Now, I apologize. This is an oversight on my part. The reason that we're returning the value range is because I forgot the last step of our data collector function. So we are going to hit the X sign on our execution log, and we're going to go back to our function file, And we are going to remove our semicolon, and then we're going to type in dot get capital D display values. And we're going to have an open parentheses there. Now, I just want you to know there is a get display value and a get display values. If you have more than one value, aka such that we do, where what we want to pull in is three data points, get display value will also return an error. So if you are working with multiple data points that you're looking to get from a range of data, from a Google Sheet, make sure that you have values here and an open parentheses. We're going to hit save. We're going to go back to our code file and we're going to hit run. And now we should get some responses. And this is showing up exactly what we wanted to see. What is your name? What is your location? How much is your asking price? The reason that those values are populating is because they are literally the last row of data in our sheet. So once we have a response in here, those values will populate in the data collector function. And you'll also notice that we are just getting columns B, C, and D, and we are not getting timestamp. And the reason for that is we're going to return to our function file again. You'll note that in our getRange method, we denoted that we wanted to start at the last row. We wanted to start at the second column. We only wanted one row of data, and then we only wanted 3 columns of data relative to our starting column. Great. The first part of our video is complete. We are now going to move on to the second part of our tutorial, where we will be learning how to build our second custom function, which will enable us to send a JSON payload to Slack. So we're going to go back to that plus sign in our script file, and we're going to add a file, and it's going to be a script file. We're going to type in function2 with a colon, and we're going to call this send payload. And you know what? You don't have to do this, but it's just, I like uniformity. So at least in my scripts, we're going to call it send payload. And the reason that I do function 1 and 2 is because you can sort your files alphabetically. And I like to have things organized so that if I'm debugging things, or I'm looking to add things, or I'm looking to kind of figure out what I'm doing in my workspace, I know what I'm doing. So when you call something the same name and then you give it a number, it will order them in this fashion. So data collector will always come before send payload, unless if we change the numbers or the naming convention of function and then a number. Cool. So I'm going to clear out the boilerplate because that's just what I do. You don't have to. We are going to type in function, and then we're going to call it send payload. We are going to have one argument again, and we are going to have that be called payload. We are going to the right of our parentheses. We're going to be using a curly bracket, and we are going to be hitting enter twice. We're going to do 2 slashes and a space, and then we're going to say define your webhook. You're going to hit enter, and then you're going to hit tab. We're going to declare a variable called webhook, and we're going to set it equal to an empty string. We're going to come back to this portion after we finish up with this function. We will be getting our webhook URL from Slack's API. So we're going to leave an empty string here, and then we are going to populate it with our URL in the third section of our video. I'm going to add my semicolon. You can if you want to. We're going to hit enter once. We're going to hit enter twice. We're going to hit the left arrow once and twice, and then we're going to add 2 slashes for another comment of define your options. Hit enter once, hit tab, declare a variable called options, and set it equal to open curly brackets. We're going to hit enter. Now, I noted in the last video, and I will note it in this video, this portion is case sensitive. So if you get errors, this is a really good section to debug, because if you have any characters that do not align with how they need to be formatted, then you will likely get an error. So I'm going to try to be really intentional about calling out the differences in here. Hopefully it's helpful. Okay, we're going to begin now with double quotes. And then we're going to type the word method. We're going to go to the right of our double quotes and we're going to use a colon. We're going to hit space. We're going to use another set of double quotes in order to type the word post. We're going to go to the right of those double quotes and we're going to use a comma. We're going to hit enter and then we're going to use another set of double quotes. We're going to type the word content and then we're going to type the word type, but the T is capitalized. So it's content type, all one word with a capital T. We're going to go to the right of our double quotes and we're going to use another colon. We're going to hit enter. We're going to use another set of double quotes and we're going to type applications /JSON. We're going to go to the right of our double quotes. We're going to use a comma and we're going to hit enter. We're going to use another set of double quotes. We're going to type the word mute and then we're going to type the word HTTP, but the H is capitalized. HTTP. And then we're going to type the word exceptions with a capital E. So we're going to have mute HTTP exceptions, capital H, capital E. We're going to go to the right of our double quotes and we're going to use another colon. We're going to hit space and then we're going to type in the word true. This is a Boolean argument, which means it has a binary response tree of either true or false. So we don't need double quotes, we don't need single quotes, we can just type out the word true, and you'll notice that it actually comes up as a suggestion. So this is a Boolean argument of true for mute HTTP exceptions. We're going to add a comma, we're going to hit enter. We are now on the final line of our options variable. We're going to use another set of double quotes and we're going to type the word payload. We're going to go to the right of our double quotes and we're going to use a colon and we're going to hit space. We're going to use a capital J JSON that comes up as a suggestion in our editor. We're going to do dot and then we're going to use the stringify option and we're going to have an open parentheses. This is where we will be passing our input variable, which we have used the word payload to denote. So you're going to type the word payload, and then you should see that your input variable is now a more prominent shade of black. We have completed our options variable, and we will now move to the final step of this function by hitting enter twice, and then the left arrow on our keyboard twice, and then we're going to use 2 slashes for a comment, where we will type try/catch to send the payload. So try catch, you're going to hit enter and then hit tab, and you're going to use try and catch. So they are an error management system that will return a logging error in the event that there is any issue with your payload being sent. So we're going to write the word try, and then we're going to use open curly brackets. We're going to hit enter. We're going to leverage capital URL fetch app. You can see that comes up as an option. U is capitalized, F is capitalized, A is capitalized in URL fetch app. We're going to hit dot, and then we're going to select fetch. We're going to use open parentheses, and we're going to pass in our webhook variable, and then we're going to use a comma and hit space, and then we're going to pass in our options variable. We're going to hit the we're going to hit enter. Then we're going to hit the down arrow, we're going to hit right arrow, down arrow once, hit enter, type catch with open parentheses, and then type in a variable of E, which stands for error. I think you can enter in any variable you want there. I've always just done E, and a lot of documentation has it as E. I think it's the same thing with I in your for loops, where it's just kind of like, it's good shorthand that everybody can understand. So we're going to use an empty curly bracket, and we're going to hit enter, and then we're just going to pass in logger.log, open parentheses, E, go to the right, hit semicolon, and we are now 99.9% done with our send payload function. So we've built out our custom functionality, and we are now moving into the third portion of our video, where we will be generating a webhook URL, which we will be adding to our send payload function, and then we'll be leveraging Slack's block kit builder in order to generate our Slack message. So we're going to move over to our Slack workspace, and I'm going to create a new channel. So I'm going to call this channel Automated Slack Message. You don't have to do this. You can just use your general chat or your random chat or whatever you want to. This is going to be a public room. I don't have anybody else in my workspace. So you can see now I have this room called Automated Slack Message. It's in my channels up here. And we are going to go over to the main menu in our Slack workspace. So we're going to select this down arrow here, and we're going to go down to Tools and Settings, and we're going to navigate to the Administration portion of the panel, and we're going to select Manage Apps. We're going to go up to the upper right-hand corner, and we're going to select the Build option in the menu. We are going to select Create an App, which will then result in a Generate Token option, which will populate at the bottom of the screen in a moment. We will generate our token, select your workspace, then you're going to select Create an App. I'm going to create mine from scratch, and I'm going to call mine Automated Slack Message. You can call yours whatever you want to. I'm going to select my workspace, and then I am going to create the app. We are going to leverage the incoming webhook section. You can either select it in the basic information here or in the features side menu over here. It doesn't matter. They both go to the same place. Once we're in incoming webhooks, we're going to wait for this toggle switch to appear, and then we are going to select it and make sure it's on. We're going to scroll down, and we are going to add new webhook to workspace. We are going to wait for our select Slack workspace to pop up. We're going to search for our channel. So I want this to go to Automated Slack Message, but you can see all of the channels in my workspace are available here. You can also set it up, I think you can set it up for direct messages and Slack bots. But I want this to be in a public channel, so I'm going to select Allow. We'll wait for this to finish loading. Cool. So you can see we have success and on. We're going to scroll down, and we are going to copy our webhook, and we are going to go back to our app script, and we're going to paste it into our webhook. Now, at this time, I would just like to say that you should be very careful about who you give this webhook to. Slack does not have any type of authorization or validation system to understand who is reading or writing from the webhook. So if you have the webhook and it's still active, then anybody who uses it can call to the Slack workspace to read and write. So if you, for example, if you took a screenshot of this, or while I'm talking here, you type down this webhook into your app script environment and try to use it, then it would work as long as my token is still active. This Slack channel was created solely for academic purposes to show individuals how to do this. So I have no sensitive data in there. I don't use the Slack room, and I delete all of my tokens and webhooks the moment that I'm done recording these videos. So that's just a very verbose way of saying be careful about this. I personally don't do a lot with Slack. A lot of it is like, I set stuff up and it's just kind of like monitoring things, but like I don't share it with anybody. So I'm developing in isolation, in my 9 to 5. There are some ways that you can, you could use like I forget what they're called, but like the user properties or like the source properties in the project settings, of AppScript, but if anybody, knows their way around AppScript, they can go in there and see them still. So if you do have suggestions on how to manage, API secrets or webhook secrets, please leave them in the comments. I'm always interested in learning about that stuff, and it'll help other people learn about it too. But the long and short of it is just be careful, because people can read and write to your stuff. So with that out of the way, we're going to hit save, and we are going to go back to Slack, and you can see that we've added an integration to this channel, which is called Automated Slack Message, which is great. So we are going to go back to the Slack API now, and we are going to navigate to the block kit builder. So we're going to go up to documentation, and we're going to select that menu, and we are going to go to the search bar here, and you can see I've done this a couple times. We're going to enter in block kit, so type block kit into this bar and hit enter, and then we will have the block kit builder pop up here. So I'm going to wait for it to load just so you can see. It's over here in the left menu too, if it doesn't come up as a search result. I'm also going to leave it in the description. So we're going to select block kit builder on the left panel, and then you can see it shows up right here, block kit builder. We'll wait for this to load, and then we'll use a really cool tool in order to develop the JSON code for our Slack message. So the thing that I like about this tool is it's really user-friendly. I don't write a lot of JSON. I use it, and like when I have to, I'll use it, and whatever. But like, I've written this stuff from scratch before because I didn't realize that I could just use block kit builder to do it for me. And it's just like sometimes it's just like a lot, because like I personally don't know a lot of this markdown off the top of my head. Like you can kind of see like there's like different stuff in here depending upon like if you're using an image and blah 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 blah. Anyway, if you are interested in doing that stuff, that's great. I personally am not. So what you can do is like you can literally edit in this left window over here, and then it will update the payload. So what we're going to do is we're going to select clear blocks, and then you can see our app is like totally blank, and this is blank over here. And now we can use this boilerplate code over here in order to just like add stuff. So we're going to begin with just like a plain text section where you can see this just says this is plain text plain text section block. And then you could go over here and change the values, right? And you can see it's reflected over here. But even cooler, you can just like go over here and maybe not. I don't know, that's weird. All right, maybe it's not with the plain text, but if you go down to rich text and select basic, then you can see you get this like pencil over here. Sorry, I didn't know that. Basically, like apparently if you do plain text, you can't edit over here. But if you do rich text, then you can come over here, and like you could also do it in here where you say like, hello there, I'm basic rich text block. You could say like test. Oops, sorry. See, this is why I don't do this. So then it shows up here as test, or you could change it in here, and then you can literally just edit your block, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to say, hello, we have a new response to our Google form. The results are as follows, right? And then we're going to hit save. So now you can see like our code over here literally says, hello, we have new responses to our Google form. The results are as follows. So then I want to use a list, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I want to do a list. So you can see we got this basic bullet list with rich elements. So we're going to hit this pencil over here. We're going to remove that like top thing because we don't want it. And we only have 3 items in our script, so we're going to remove them. So I'm going to get rid of all the text on those bullets. And I'm going to change it to name with a colon. And then I also want to bold the name. And then we're going to do location. And I'm going to bold the location. And then we're going to do amount. And I'll bold the amount. Now, what we're also going to do, because we're going to eventually have to edit our code over here, is we're going to add placeholder, and placeholder. This way, when we go to edit in Google Apps Script, we have the placeholder values right here so that we know what we want to change. And one thing that I picked up in the last video that is still true here is that for whatever reason, the colon here doesn't show up with the name, location, amount. And actually, like, now that I think about it, it's because they have style tags of true set for bold. So if you bold the semicolons, then they will also appear with bold. It doesn't matter. We can work around it, but that's why that's appearing like that. Cool. So if you want to pause the video, play around with BlockKit Builder, build out however you want your message to appear. And then when you're ready, hit play, and we are going to navigate back to AppScript, and we're going to plug this code in. Cool. So I am going to copy the payload to my clipboard. I hope that worked. I'm going to go back to my Slack message, and I'm going to go back to the code file. We no longer, actually, you know what? I'm going to keep the logger.log in here so that you can see how this works. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to wherever you are in the code file and hit enter twice, hit the left arrow twice, and then add a comment and call it Slack block code. Hit enter and tab, and we're going to do a variable called blocks. And we're going to set that equal to, and we're then going to hit paste, and then we're going to have all that BlockKit code in here, and we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to do 2 slashes, and we are going to say send payload, and we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to hit tab, and we're just going to have that as a placeholder so that we can scroll down to this in a little bit. Okay, cool. So you can see we now have our blocks code in here, and it is very unwieldy. I still haven't figured out the best way to pass this in. If I was doing this as a personal project, I would probably set up a different file just for this, and then I would probably pass in my arguments as like a function. But I didn't want to get all like functions within functions within functions for an educational resource. So, if you have feedback on that, I'm always interested in hearing about it. But I digress. So now what we need to do is remove our placeholders and have them reference access points in our arrays. So I'm going to hit save. You don't have to do this. I just want you to see. We're going to hit run. Oh, and we have to review the permissions again. My apologies. That's because we had the send payload function. So we have to give it access to write to external sources. So we're going to select advanced, go to Slack message unsafe. And you can see now we're saying connect to an external service. That's because we are calling our webhook URL. We're going to hit allow. And you can see we're getting this array, which is the most recent row in our Slack message. So we are going to now go back into our logger.log. You don't have to do this. Again, I just want you to see what we're doing to understand it. So this is a demonstration. Sit back and relax so you can see it. So basically we want to access this value for the name placeholder, this value for the location placeholder, and this value for the amount placeholder. So what we're going to do is use square brackets, and then we're going to use numbers. So arrays, that's what this is. This is an array. So you can see this square bracket represents the array. And then this other square bracket is basically like so that you could do an array of arrays, right? But really, this is our array. the arrays are 0 indexed. So we are going to be accessing, so like because this is an array within an array, I think if we do form responses square bracket 0, we're going to go from having 2 square brackets to 1. So I'm going to rerun it again. And now you can see the difference, right? Now we're accessing the first array in our array of arrays. So if we wanted to then access the first value in the array, we would add an additional square bracket and then type in 0. Again, these are 0 indexed, right? So when we say 0, we access the first array. And then when we add a second 0, we will access the first point in the array, which should be what is your name. So we're going to try running it again. Boom, check it out. We got what is your name. So if we wanted to get the second value, we add in 1 because, again, arrays are 0 indexed. What is your location? Add in a 2, hit run. Boom. How much is your asking price? Wonderful, right? So what we're going to do now is we are going to add these code, like this code, into our blocks. This is why using the all caps placeholder was a helpful little way of setting up our block kit builder. So if you do not feel like you're prepared to go within the block kit code right now, feel free to pause the video and go back to the block kit builder section so that you can have those little placeholders in there to make this a little bit easier for you. Once you're ready, hit play, and then we're going to begin adjusting our code. Cool. So we are going to scroll down, and you can see we have text in here for our greeting, and then we're going to scroll down, and you can see we see the word name, and then we see placeholder. Now, as I mentioned, our placeholder also includes our colon because it is not bold. The name is bold, so we now have this as a string. So what we're going to do is we are going to delete our placeholder, but we're going to keep the space between our colon and the between the colon character and the double quote character, and we're going to go to the right of the double quote. We're going to hit space, and then we're going to use a plus symbol. And the reason we use plus is because that's how we concatenate values in AppScript. So we are now going to reference form responses, and then we're going to use a square bracket in order to access the first array in our array of arrays. And then we are going to use another square bracket so that we can use 0 in order to access the first value of our array. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to locate our second placeholder, which is location, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to highlight placeholder. We're going to hit delete. We're going to keep that space between these two characters. We're going to go to the right of the double quote. We're going to do a space. We're going to do a plus sign. We're going to hit space. We're going to reference our form responses variable. We're going to use square brackets and use 0 in order to access the first array of our array of arrays. We're going to hit the right arrow. We're going to use another square bracket. And now we're going to use 1 because we want to access the second value in our 0 indexed array. Remember, they are 0 indexed. So the first value is represented by a 0, and the second value is represented by a 1. We're going to scroll down. We found amount. We are going to remove our placeholder, hit enter. Make sure you have a space between these two characters. You're going to go to the right of the double quote. You're going to hit space. You're going to use a plus symbol. You're going to hit space. You're going to call form responses one final time. You're going to use a square bracket, a 0, because we want to access the first array in our array of arrays. We will go to the right of our square bracket. We will use another square bracket. And because we want the third value in our array, we're going to use a 2 because, again, it is a 0 index. So the first value is 0, the second value is 1, and the third value is 2. We have completed our application. The last thing that we got to do is hit enter after our send payload comment, hit tab, and then we're going to call our send payload function. we're going to use an open parentheses, and then we are going to pass in our blocks variable. We're going to hit save. And now we're going to go to our Google form, and we are going to start filling in some responses so that we have some real data. So we're going to go up to, you can see we're in this like edit portion of our form. We're going to go up to the preview icon up here, which is an eye. We're going to select that, and then that's going to take us to the form. You can see that this is not being shared, so we're going to enter our stuff. So I'm going to enter my name. I'm going to enter a location, and then I'm going to enter an asking price, and I'm going to hit submit. I'm going to go to my Google Sheet, and you can see that my values have been entered. Now, I want this column to be amount, so I'm going to change it to currency like that. So now you can see it appears as with a dollar sign and a decimal point. So we're going to go to Slack, or sorry, to our app script now, and we're going to test out our function here. So I'm going to remove this logger.log because I don't need it. You can comment it out if you wanted to. I'm going to hit Command Z real quick. You don't have to do that. You can see it's highlighted. I'm on a Mac, so I don't know how to do this on Windows. So apologies if you're on Windows, but you can comment things out with a keyboard shortcut of Command and then backspace. So if you're on a Windows machine, it's probably like Command or Windows key or whatever it is on there. I apologize. I haven't used Windows in like decades at this point. So you can either comment it out if you want to save it for later, or you can just delete it completely. Anyway, we're going to hit save. And now when we hit run, what we should see is a custom Slack message that has the name Matt, the location of Texas, and the amount of $100. So let's cross our fingers and hit run. Cool, so we didn't get any errors here. We're going to go to our Slack workspace and check it out. We now have an automated Slack message that says, hello, we have a new response to our Google form. The results are as follows. And then we got Matt, Texas, and $100. That's great. So the last thing that we have to do is go back to our app script and set this up for automation. So we're going to navigate to the left UI panel in app script, and we're going to select triggers. You can see there are no triggers, so we're going to create a new trigger. We want my function to run. That's our executable code. If you did not change the name of other functions in here and you have multiple my functions, you might have an issue. So make sure that this is your executable function, whatever you called it. And we're going to change the event type. So we're going to change it from on open to on form submit. And we're going to hit save. And we're going to sign in. Going to go to advanced, scroll down, go to Slack messages unsafe. Basically, it's just saying you want to connect to an external service, hit allow. Cool. So now we have an automation set for every time that form submissions go to a Google Sheet. It'll run our function, which you can see in here in our editor is called my function. This is from our code file, which is using our data collector function and our send payload function in order to deliver Slack blocks as a Slack message within a Slack workspace. So let's go back and let's submit another response in here. And let's do Hallie, and let's do their location as Florida. And let's say the amount is 1 million, I think, or maybe that's 100,000. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're going to hit submit. We're going to go to our Slack message. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, this is not formatting the way that I wanted to. Apologies. If you do want formatting, I'm sure you can find it in a Google search that will tell you how to do it. So then we're going to go to our Slack message and check it out. Now we have, hello, we have a new response to our Google form. The results are as follows. The name is Hallie, the location is Florida, and the amount is not formatted the way that we want to, but hey, we got the majority of our stuff in here, right? And if you want, like, you can like change this image by going to app, and set all that type of stuff up. And then people are like, oh, this is awesome. And they'll hit that. And then like when you go back in here and you submit another response. So let's do Christy, and they are in Washington, and their asking price is also a lot. and we'll hit submit. That hits the form like that. And then we go to our Slack space, and then you can see we're back with like the app appearing in there. And we now have messages rolling in. So to summarize, we learned how to automate a Slack message using a Google form that sends data to a Google Sheet and is processed or automated in Google Apps Script. We developed 2 custom functions: data collector, which takes one input argument, which is the sheet ID, in order to extract all the values that we want to populate into our message from the Google Sheet. Our second function is the send payload, which allows us to leverage a Slack webhook URL in order to deliver a JSON payload to a Slack workspace in order to populate a customized Slack message. Finally, we leveraged Slack's block kit builder in order to populate the JSON payload that would deliver our Slack message. And then one cherry on top is we learned how to automate it using triggers so that anytime a form submission occurs, it will result in our script running so that the data from the last row of the spreadsheet appears as a stylized message in a Slack workspace. I hope you found this helpful. I love hearing from y'all. You hit me up in the comments, you hit me up in my emails, send me so many great ideas. Please keep them coming. Love hearing from you. And if there's additional stuff that you want to do with Slack, let me know. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you'll check out the next one. I wish you the best of luck with any data projects you got going on.